And we're recording. Conor Riley of Birth. Hi, good morning, and thank you for hanging out this morning. It's early on your end, 9 o'clock. So thank you. I want to talk first of all about Born and kind of the timing of the release, because how old is this material to you?
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me, because I've been
nonsense,
a long time reader.
That's ridiculous. No.
Yeah, it's true though. Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, the I guess the material it's been a little while. Like some of the material dates back probably like 6 or 7 years. Like the older stuff that like just little parts.
Okay.
And then some of it's as new as 6 months before the album came out, or well, 6 months before we started recording the album, maybe, or something like that. Anyway, it took the lead times and everything. It took like a year to actually get it pressed and everything. But yeah, so I guess some of the stuff was kind of like things I was thinking about, or me and Brian were thinking about for like part of like another Astra album, which never happened. Some of it was even stuff that was like even just supposed to be meant as like a side kind of thing, or just things that we had for fun. Mm-hmm. I mean, really, like Birth kind of came out of sort of just like not really knowing what we were doing musically. I think I was feeling like kind of challenged with when you have a project, sometimes it gains momentum, and then you're always kind of like thinking, how am I going to do better than the last album, or like you might not even feel inspired by the last kind of material. So this was kind of like almost like a freeing kind of project, where it was like I don't have to write to any kind of like confines or constrictions or expectations, and that's sort of how it happened.
Totally fresh start.
Yeah,
but kind of not, right, at the same time.
I think if you listen to it, it sounds kind of like stuff I've written in the past. So
yeah, I think you get that kind of vibe. It's definitely you and Brian, right? I mean, it's I get that coming from Astra. I think it was like 2017 or something. I was looking back because I remember that there had been word of a third Astra happening, and as I was reviewing Birth, I kind of went back and looked back at that, and I think you can kind of hear some of the pieces that might have been that on Born.
Yeah,
right? I think there's some that certain kind of proggy fluid melody, I guess, comes through a lot.
Definitely. I think that there's actually that song, the first song on the track, Born, was I think the first song that we kind of wrote. Mm-hmm. And I think that one is sort of like the furthest departure from Astra, because it's more like a happier kind of Canterbury sound, which is something we didn't really do too much. Like Astra is pretty like I don't know, darker, or they didn't really have that like happier sound to it. And so like that was kind of what I think at first. It was just kind of like, I just want to write something like that's sort of different, and that's sort of what I was thinking about when we were like jamming on new stuff. And then it kind of, I don't know, is naturally I kind of like drift towards the darker, heavier stuff. So like I got tired of that pretty quick and kind of went back to the heavier sound. I don't know. And I think there's kind of a combination of all those things.
I had a friend turn me on to the first Silver Sunshine album not too long ago.
Oh yeah, I saw that you wrote about that.
That was pretty happy, at least some of it.
It was and in some ways Astra was kind of like a direct retaliation to that, because we were like, and I get kind of like touchy. For a long time I didn't want anyone to even like listen to it, because it's the lyrics are pretty paisley, like nice guy and stuff like that.
What was that? You just
so yeah, I mean, it's like the lyrics are a little paisley, like things like I quoted like I think there's one like Icicle in the Skies, and like things like that, which at the time, I don't know, we were just kind of into that sort of 60s vibe. But we, I think around that time it was like we started getting this crowd that was like really into the 60s stuff, and it was like almost like we were playing like Austin Powers events and stuff, which is fine. I mean, those people I'm still friends with like that crowd and stuff, and they're totally cool and supportive for the most part. But I think we just kind of wanted to go a different like direction from that. And I started like when I was a kid, I listened to like metal 24 hours a day, and so sort of kind of went back to that with like the happy medium being like the darker kind of King Crimson-esque like prog.
Yeah. Well, where does the love for that come from?
From like King Crimson?
That proggy kind of classic proggy sound.
I think that sort of developed from, realistically, it was sort of like a natural progression of like we kind of chronologically went through like the music sort of like the way that musicians did. So we were listening to like, it really came from, I actually was listening to Yes, like before all the Silver Sunshine and stuff. I've always been like a huge Yes fan.
Okay.
I kind of stopped listening to Yes, but then I started, we started doing Silver Sunshine, and through that we started listening to Tomorrow a lot, which is Keith West and Steve Howe's before Yes's band. And so I just got really into like Steve Howe guitar playing, and then eventually like started getting to Yes again, and then from that like exploring and really Richard from Silver Sunshine and Astra was really started getting into like Italian prog and a lot of that kind of like deeper diving into like that 70s prog, and that's
a whole world, man. I mean,
it's like never ending. It's crazy. So.
People talk about the sheer amount of music out now. It's like, no, that's nothing new at all. It's just how it is.
I think people just keep finding these like records in record shops, like in like random parts of the world. They'll find some 70s obscure prog that's like amazing, and it just keeps popping up. It's crazy, but it's awesome.
And then they'll reissue it, which is how it goes.
Yeah.
So how did, or I guess when and how, because the demo was recorded in the Birth demo was recorded in 2017?
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. Yeah.
Okay. So at what point are you and Brian writing songs and you're like, oh shit, I guess we're a band?
Again. It was probably before that,
Okay.
Like about a year. Because I think like, Brian and I are just friends. We'll always be friends. We just kind of clicked pretty early on. And I think, Astra never really quit, but we just kind of like kept hanging out and kind of started realizing that Astra wasn't really going to be, like writing music together in a while. And so we just kind of like had some parts, and we're kind of like jamming on some stuff with like different people, but no real like plans for anything. But then I think it was sometime after, like maybe right after, like I think like that song "Born" we kind of wrote, and it didn't, it was just kind of like a thing we were jamming on, and then came like the other two songs, the demo, and then it kind of became more of like a cohesive project. And it was actually Paul Marone, who was playing drums at the time, that really like kind of pushed it. I was kind of like on the fence for a little while about like, it's just really difficult dealing with people, especially like, after, when you get a little older, to get people to like be in a band and practice often. So, but he kind of like really pushed us to like actually try to make something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we sort of just wrote a couple more songs in a set, and we played a couple live shows before COVID, and then COVID happened. So, but in a crazy kind of way, like COVID was maybe the main like push that got us to actually write, like complete an album.
Right.
Because like everybody else, like Paul was going on tour with Radio Moscow for like 6 months out of the year, and then we just had all other kind of stuff that was happening, and it just kind of like was impossible to get anything done until we could all just until we were all basically just locked in our houses, right. And, like, forced to work on music.
So, okay, so what's the timing on? So lockdown is March 2020, or so I've heard, and how long and how much? I guess how much of the album was done before that, and then what was the timeline on putting the rest together?
I think that 5 out of the 6 songs were pretty much completed. We like tweaked, a few things for sure.
Okay.
But then the song for Yesterday was pretty much just written in lockdown. So that's pretty much it.
I wanted to ask you specifically about For Yesterday. Tell me about writing For Yesterday.
That one was definitely written differently than all the other ones, because the other ones were very collaborative, and we were all writing parts, and but For Yesterday it was basically just like lockdown happened, and I had a bunch of parts, and I kind of like demoed a lot of it out, and kind of basically just kind of like got addicted to like that song, and that just like really written in a couple, maybe like in a week, just in like this kind of setup that I have around here. But I mean, obviously, like, the parts were kind of written, and it was kind of done in a certain way. I would have liked to actually jam it out a lot more with like the guys, but because of like COVID and the timing of having to record the album, we sort of like just had to take the demo and jam it out for a little while, but we didn't really have much time. It was pretty much just like, here's the demo, let's put it on the album. But then like a lot of the parts that written over that, the guitar parts, and we jammed on a lot of it on that, but it was like the basis and the structure was kind of like set by me just being like a complete weirdo in my own house, like totally alone, like looking for an outlet. So but yeah, that one was a little different, and I can anyway, when I listen to that song versus the other ones, like I think it's a great song, but the recording sounds a little different, and it just doesn't, I don't know, I went back and forth about it for a while, but seems to actually like fit in the album, I guess, when you like don't have that perspective. Like when I listen to it now, like it sounds okay, but for a while it's kind of like sounds super out of place.
I mean, it stands out to me in terms of, I wanted to ask about it specifically, right? But yeah. I don't think it's awkward on the record at all, necessarily.
Oh, good. Yeah. I mean, I haven't heard that from anybody, so, but I'm glad to hear you say it.
So and I don't necessarily think, well, okay, so you have the basic parts, you have the basic structure, and you take it into the studio and kind of flesh it out and make it what it is. I'm interested in what the basic recordings, what about it sounds different to you? What do you hear?
Like, like how that one sounds different from the other songs on the album?
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the parts like could have been developed more with like other people's it's a little bit too much of me on
it's too much you from you.
Yeah, like, everybody, like when we jam out the parts, like, I mean, there are things that other people write that are just things I would never think of, that just sound weird to me at first, but then become my favorite part later on. It's like a lot of like really cool,
of course,
me like learning from other people. We didn't really have that with this song, so, but it's okay. I mean, it sounds pretty good, but we actually played it live for the first time in our record release, like the first half of it anyway, and like there were parts that like like bass parts and stuff that were coming together. I'm like, man, I wish that would have been on the album, but so yeah, it's not ideal, but it turned out pretty good, so I'm not that bummed out about it.
Fair enough.
And actually the first part of that song we did get kind of like out, so it's not totally lost.
Say that again, I'm sorry, you just cut out just the last.
yeah, like the first intro sequence, we kind of like had a chance to take a day with and kind of restructure that a lot. So that one, yeah, that's a little different.
How long were you actually in the studio recording?
Well, we kind of spaced it out because of the way things happened with COVID.
Right.
Everything was kind of like pieced together. Some parts were actually taken from earlier sessions that we had done before because we didn't have really enough time to like get everybody together, and everything kept like getting like canceled, and you know how it went back in those days. So it was actually like a pretty maddening process, but a lot of it was done in Brian's studio. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of had an unlimited time when it came to like, well, I say not really unlimited. I mean, like how much before we would go completely insane, basically. And so, so a lot of it was like me just like, you know, staying with Brian for weeks, and us just like hashing out parts and recording different things and mixing. The mixing took a long time.
I should think so. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of balance to strike there between the various guitars and keys and all that. And you get vocals and oh my god, yeah.
That's kind of my style, to just like record like an insane amount of tracks and just be like, give it to Brian, and then we download it all and like just shave it down. I think for yesterday I had like 200 tracks. It was like the computer was like, I was on the verge of crashing before we like finished it.
You broke it. Yeah, no.
It was close. It was definitely a couple of times where we had to like reset and, you know, start over. It was run into that.
Obviously, you know, nobody's strangers between you and Paul and now Thomas and Brian and Trevor and this whole sort of collective out there of dudes in bands with other dudes in bands with this dude and bands with and so on. But in terms of thinking of how Birth goes forward, you know, how do you feel about not only Paul leaving and Thomas coming in, but sort of where it might develop toward, like what, having done Born, right, and written those songs and recorded those songs and the whole process in the sort of mess that was 2020, what do you think you can take from that to move forward with the band?
Yeah, well, I think that, I mean, everything kind of changed when in 2020, when we kind of like, a lot of that was like signing with Bad Omen Records too. Like they sort of like kind of put new life into it, you know? And so there wasn't really like, yeah, I don't think there's a feeling of like a lot of momentum until that kind of happened. And Thomas joined basically right around that time, and like I think this group, like us four, me, Thomas, Trevor, and Brian, are kind of have like a really good chemistry, and it's really like easy to write music with them and hang out with them and stuff. So
that helps.
I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, they're like, I love them, and it's like a cool environment, and you know, it's just like fun to hang out. And so like, I kind of, you know, we have, I'd say like, I'm not sure what's going to make it on the next album, but you know, we have maybe like half of an album sort of written to some degree, and like some parts and stuff. So I think that like, you know, we're going to keep going with that for sure. And just kind of see where it takes us. But, you know, I think that we have like a good amount of momentum now to kind of like just continue with what we're doing.
Yeah, I think definitely coming off the release, for sure. I mean, I think it's gotten some, I mean, I dug it, but I think it's gotten some pretty good attention otherwise as well.
Yeah, cool. It takes a long time for us to write music though. I'll say that. So it's, you know,
I believe that too. I believe that too. How much, I mean, would you tour? How much would you tour?
I would love, like, I mean, that's kind of the next step I think that we want to do with this is take on the road. You know, like being in California is kind of weird because like you know, you're like separated by Middle Americas, which like I like playing Middle America, but it's like when you like think about the how like the costs and everything, it's sort of like we kind of like are prone to just stay on the West Coast because we can get like just do a couple tours for now, you know, until like, you know, unless things change. But we just going up from like San Diego to Seattle kind of seems to be what makes the most sense right now. So
Yeah,
we're trying to do some maybe in October. Yeah, I'm talking to a couple bands about that. So yeah, we might do something like that in October. We might do like a Europe thing in April, you know, do the like road burn circuit.
I was waiting for April to follow. You know, we might do Europe in April. Yeah, I know what that means. Yeah.
Well, I don't nothing. I mean,
right.
Like,
Nothing confirmed. But.
Yeah, I haven't talked to anybody from any festivals or anything like that, so I don't want to get that started. But I honestly have no idea if it's going to happen. But that's kind of like a wish. Like I would love to do that.
Right, it's on the list. I understand. I saw. Speaking of that venerable festival, I saw Astra there in 2013 for the Black Chord, and I recall it well. Was a fun set for sure, and great to see that stuff come to life. I had seen you guys in 2009 too. What's that?
At Roadburn or
no, it was a festival in North Carolina called Planet Caravan that never happened again.
At the Orange Peel.
Yeah,
I remember that. Yeah, we played Pentagram.
Yeah, that's right.
It was like Pentagram's first show, and I wanted to meet Bobby so like super bad, and then didn't realize he was unapproachable human being.
No, there's not really much going up to him and saying hi and having a conversation. It's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So anyway, so I hope to get to see Birth at some point. Is the upshot of that.
We definitely want to. Yeah, going out to the East Coast.
Don't.
Maybe
don't. I'll come to you. Don't come to the East Coast. The East Coast. It's not where you want to be.
Yeah, tough to get out there.
Yeah,
not completely out.
Yeah, no, you know, it's interesting here. It's very crowded, and I feel like I'm outside New York, and there's this sort of air of there's too many people in not enough space, and so everybody's kind of mad at each other about it. So
that's where I grew up. So
there you go. So you know, right? So you know, it's
changed a lot. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So you know, the kind of flowingly melodic, spacey prog stuff might just get Monster Truck run over by New York hardcore. I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, if you come, play the St. Vitus Bar and I'll go to the show.
Yeah. So
we talked about moving from the kind of 60s acid rock thing to the more flowing prog. And as you continue to write with Brian, and as you continue to write with Trevor and Thomas and Birth generally, do you have a kind of expectation for what you want the band to be sound wise, like thinking of the next material, right? Is there something in your mind that fits an idea of what the band is, or is it just there are no rules?
Not really. I mean, I don't really like writing music like with constraints like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I don't want to like jump into other people's heads and, you know, think about, you know, what they might want to write and then tell them like, no, we're not writing that kind of album or something, you know. So I mean, I just really like just wanted everyone to just feel like as creative as possible, and, you know, and kind of like see where it goes. I think I was listening to. It's kind of funny because like if you would have asked me this a while ago, I probably would have said, it's more like kind of like I say like the song for Yesterday was the newest one on the album, and that one kind of has, to me anyway, like a Swedish prog kind of vibe to it, like especially that whole like second half sequence.
Mm-hmm.
And that during COVID, I was just listening to tons of like
Stenar.
Yeah, that all that kind of more chill, like maybe library sounding kind of stuff, and just kind of like fit the mood. And so I thought, some of the newer stuff does have that kind of vibe, and that's what I kind of thought that maybe the newer album would be. But the newest song that we actually wrote is probably like one of the more heavier songs, probably heavier than anything that's on Born. So yeah, I have no idea basically. Like it could be. I'm hoping that's kind of diverse in that sense, and that but it still kind of flows to some degree.
I think that. I mean, if you start out going in multiple directions, as I think Born does, then yeah, it makes sense that you would continue along that path. I mean, there's certainly, I guess short of Canterbury, there's a lot of different avenues that the songs go down on Born, and there's sort of, I feel like I can hear things that could be fleshed out. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, this is, this part of a song could be the basis of an entire band's career, other song. You know what I mean? Like it could be, the album sounds to me like a first record in the sense of you guys beginning this exploration. The advantage is you all know each other, right? Yeah. So it's not like you're strangers showing up to a rehearsal room. As you've said, you're all good friends. You enjoy spending time together. You love these people. This is a manifestation of that. I think that's a beautiful thing, and you're fortunate. And as the kind of as this exploration keeps going, to have that as the foundation is really the ideal, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say where it'll go. I think I'm always kind of like envious of people who can write albums that have this like path and concept, and they kind of like know what the album's going to sound like before they even start to write it. But like, I don't think I just don't have that kind of vision, or
I also think a lot of that happens after the fact.
That's why I kind of think it's a lot of times maybe it's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, like, no, definitely.
Afterwards,
definitely.
Like, I know I had this planned out the whole time, but I mean, yeah, maybe. I think there are some people that do like go into it with like a real.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying that the album as story never happens. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that there are plenty of people who are full of shit, who are like, I wrote this thematic concept album about. It's like, yeah, you wrote the songs and then you put the narrative to it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand how that would possibly be less valid, but whatever. Anyway. Yeah. Anyway, I want to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to let you go.
All right.
Give me one album for somebody who wants to get, maybe somebody who doesn't have the King Crimson, the Yes background, that sort of classic prog, November, Tribe, Grausox, Dinner, and so on background, to help them understand where you guys are coming from, what you're speaking to sound wise, other than your own record, obviously.
One album, yeah, that's a tough. Geez, especially it's hard with prog, because there's so many like 40-minute albums where I'm like, well, it's like 2 minutes from this album and like 2 minutes from that album. But I maybe one album that like I put on a lot. Actually, I have two different versions of it. Is Aphrodite's Child 666 is one that I listen to quite a lot. I don't know if I would say that that's exactly what we're trying to do though.
No, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be something you're trying to copy. That's not what I'm looking for. But something that would help someone unfamiliar better understand.
I would say that's a good album to kind of like listen to it in a way, like for where I come from. I mean, but in the sense that like there are like songs, like it's based on like the singer songwriter kind of style and the melody, and then it kind of like also has like a lot of elements of progressive rock as well. But I'd also like say things like aria, Italian jazz, prog. I'm blanking on the name of the album.
It's okay.
Mine. I forget the name of the album. Jesus.
It's okay.
It's the second album. No, it's the first album that they wrote, I believe.
Did they spell it ARIA?
It's Italian. That's why I can't. You know what? I'm just gonna look it up.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
The really huge.
Demetrios Stratos here.
Yeah, Demetrios Stratos. I just saw a pretty cool documentary.
Arbeit macht frei.
Yeah, that one. Albert macht frei. I think it's like the work sets you free or something. It means something like that. English. But yeah, I think some of the elements we take, like the jazzier parts, kind of come from that kind of stuff. I listen to that a good amount. Yeah, there's some Magma too in there.
What are you listening to now?
I've been listening a lot to Camel Moon Madness lately, the last couple of days. Osana, I can never pronounce these. Kugli Mia is the soundtrack that Osana did. Well, I've been listening to that one for a while. Pretty amazing album. I've also been listening to why am I blanking on this too? Atlantis Philharmonic. I just bought that vinyl a couple days, a couple months ago. Kind of like re-explored it and gotten into it and gotten out of it and then gotten back into it again within the last couple of months. So yeah, listen to that. I always listen to John Coltrane, Live at the Village Vanguard. I just always revisit that. That's something I used to like put on every morning for a long time and still do. It's just one of the albums that I always really loved.
It's funny what stays with you, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that one has stayed with me since I was like a teenager. I don't know why. It's it just has like the right combination of like melody and improv and like the first what they call like spiritual jazz kind of movement. So pretty awesome.
Nice. I'm gonna let you go. I'm sorry.
So that was more than one album, but
that's fine. I like more music is better. I'm gonna stop the recording before I do. Connor, thank you again for taking the time as you enjoy your morning coffee, I assume. So hang on one second.